Okay, we are live, and I've got some very important news coming out of Pakistan. Simon is with me, and he's going to join me in just a moment. The situation in Pakistan is quite precarious at this stage. Imran Khan has come out and given a very important warning, and we call this the Humpty Dumpty episode because Imran Khan has come out and said that if Pakistan were to fall and break, it will be impossible to put her back together. Let's get Simon right now for a quick update out of Pakistan. And in an unusual term today for World Series news, we will pause the broadcast live and we will regroup for a second show for even more precarious news coming from around the world, as we've talked about in the big lead up this week, where Simon has talked. There are multiple meetings coming up. We have the C5, the G7, and also the Arab League meeting, where a bunch of new agreements and announcements are set to be made, and sanctioning that is going on that will be discussed with the G7 that we're going to talk about in detail with Simon in that second report. You don't want to miss that, because it looks like there is only one outcome from this: the big march towards war. And you will only get the details here on World Series News, and you'll be able to clarify against the majors that will come out after this. Very interesting. But let's get back to Pakistan. Simon, welcome back to the show. Big news out of Pakistan, and where do we go from here? Now, after that, it looks like I've lost Simon. There might be some sort of delay there with the audio. If you can hear me, Simon, come back. But the story of today is all about Imran Khan. And Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall, as we've said. It's an incredible quote. Let's see if Simon is standing by here. And we'll just check that audio again. Simon. I can hear
Can you hear me there?
Gotcha now. Thank you.
Excellent. Okay. So I was just saying, as I explained on my 8th appearance with Mr. Galloway today, where he had been trying to impress upon his enormous audience the level of the seriousness in Pakistan today, I very politely pointed out that he had not come close to explaining the level of seriousness. And we are truly at a moment of existential crisis in Pakistan.
Okay.
And I can explain that in detail. So we've had a number of the party leadership have been arrested again in Pakistan. We've got now, according to Mr. Khan, over 700 people with gunshot wounds in hospitals across Pakistan. 700. Wow. There are 25 dead confirmed. There are a number of journalists who have previously been favorable to his political party who have gone missing, and some are being reported as being tortured. There's an allegation that one of his female senior leadership members, who was previously the Minister of Information, she was held in prison, was released by court order, was re-arrested. Her daughter went to the police station to provide her with some clothing and food, and could hear her mother screaming as she was being abused. Wow. The daughter was then manhandled and arrested so that she couldn't leave and reveal the situation to the world. So, I mean, we've got to remember that this is the largest political party in Pakistan by far, because the government is a coalition of like 11 or 12 other parties.
Yes.
The PTI is essentially one big party and a couple of small coalition members.
Yes.
Now, whilst his house was being surrounded by an enormous number of armed police, and we're talking that, they were turning up on motorbikes, bicycles, vans, jeeps, running on foot, just like a whole. If you imagine a combined arms battalion, all advancing into battle, all running down the road. It's like the scene, and possibly we can find this in post production, where the Blues Brothers are being chased as they try and deliver $5,000 to the county property assessor's office.
Yes.
And they have like 100 police cars, helicopters, the National Guard, armored personnel carriers, and every single law enforcement unit that you can possibly imagine, all after them as they try and deliver the delinquent tax payment to save the orphanage. That is literally, without exaggeration, what was happening outside of Imran Khan's house today. All right?
Yes.
Now, the reason for that enormous, ludicrous, overwhelming force was because the government had claimed that in his relatively small residential unit, where he lives with his wife and occasionally his sister and his security guards and stuff, that he was housing 40 terrorists who had moved in whilst he was in prison overnight on what was that, Wednesday night last week, right?
They just made this up.
Yeah, they literally just made it up. So they said that the people who set fire to the government buildings on Thursday last week, the reason why the police hadn't been able to arrest them was because they were all hiding in Imran Khan's house.
No, this is just preposterous, isn't it?
I mean, it's quite absurd, okay? So he said, okay, with the following media companies, send in 4 senior police officers with a warrant and with like 1 media team for each police chief inspector, police superintendent, whatever, right? You can search my whole house, but I want the media to film you doing it. Okay? So that called their bluff, and they all left. Okay? Now, in the morning of today, Pakistan time, you will recall that Imran Khan's 5-day protective bail, that we were the only English language media organization that pointed out that he had to get that to be free last week.
Yep.
And he had to have it extended to avoid being arrested today.
Yes.
Okay? So having been correct on that twice, his lawyers, I don't believe he went in person, but his lawyers went back to the court and said, here we are as fully empowered legal representatives of former Prime Minister Khan, and we would like to have his protective bail in all cases rolled over.
Yes.
Okay? The court agreed that and extended it for 14 days until the 31st of May. Now, despite that having been done, very late at night, by which I mean like 11 p.m., right? The Interior Minister, who's in charge of all of the federal police and some of the paramilitary units in Pakistan, said, because for some reason he didn't seem to appreciate that the bail that was due to expire today had been rolled over for 2 weeks. Like in all the comings and goings, it genuinely seemed that somebody didn't give him a copy of that court order, right?
Yep.
So he publicly announced that Imran Khan could be rearrested as of midnight because his bail was going to run out. So the hundreds of police rushed back and surrounded the house again and blocked off all of the roads leading to the house because Imran Khan had called for his supporters to rally around his residence while the police were gone. Okay. So that then resulted in a standoff. No arrest was executed for two reasons. One, the bluff had been called regarding the faulty alleged arsonists.
Yes.
And two, somebody obviously ran to the interior minister and said, hey, boss, you would have been right, but this got extended for 14 days. So we can't arrest him until May the 31st.
So Imran Khan, the great threat in all of this, and it's just apparent that it's kind of obvious now that you've got a government that is running scared. It's already forced back elections, and this is all targeting Imran Khan and his party.
Now, if I may quickly, and I know we've only got 9 minutes remaining. So he gave an interview to Al Jazeera, 9 minutes long. Frankly, didn't really reveal very much. But previously, he put out a statement in Urdu to all of his supporters.
Yes.
And in that, and the reason why we have the theme of Humpty Dumpty, where don't forget, when he falls off the wall, it's all the king's men, all the king's soldiers and all the king's men couldn't put him back together again. Now, Imran Khan has suggested that if things spiral out of control, which is the first time that phrase has been used, and if the country tears itself apart into heaven knows how many pieces, that it could well be possible to put it back together again. Literally like he was channeling Humpty Dumpty, though he didn't say that in Urdu. Okay? But with the other reason for the relevance of that is not simply an egg, hardboard egg being broken into 100 pieces, is because that involved, in the nursery rhyme, the military.
Yes.
And what has now become abundantly clear, and he's been asked about this now a couple of times, is he against the army? Is it the PTI against the army? Now, the army is very much suggesting that they want to use the Army Act to prosecute anybody who is involved in attacking military installations as if it were a war, right? And the response from Imran Khan has been that he doesn't see himself being against all the officers and soldiers of the army of Pakistan, but that it's clear that he's set against some of the generals and the current head of the Pakistan army. And because it's a very disciplined formation, though, as we saw, about 10 officers did refuse orders to open fire last week on unarmed Pakistani civilians. It was mainly the police who were shooting, not the army, right? That there has been dissension within the ranks, and he says that because he's against the head of the army, and most of the army are following that man's orders, he de facto is in a situation where he's against the army. Now, two important things have started to occur. Because of the pressure and because of the conflict with the army, which is a very revered institution in Pakistan, several of his as yet unimprisoned leadership have not defected, but they have resigned from his political party. They just can't take the pressure, which obviously is intense. It's life-threatening. Okay. Now, unfortunately, his close friend and previous government minister, Fawad Chowdhury,
Yes,
whose daughter issued a very emotional appeal that he be released from prison, came out today and said that he would devote every drop of his blood to defending the army of Pakistan, even above his own family.
Wow.
Now, that may have simply been out of respect for the institution, but it goes to show you the knife edge that these people are walking on, that they're really not certain if they come out against the entirety of the army, whether or not they can take the nation with them.
Yeah.
That's the situation that they're in. Now, if we do in fact get a political divide, you may literally see the army come in, impose martial law, and yet huge civilian demonstrations against the ruling government and the military, bearing in mind that as of today, Imran Khan has said that he believes that he has the support of 70% of the population of Pakistan. Okay, so I mean, these are just a huge maelstrom of events. Now, he's also said that he believes, because he asked for his party members, including women and children, to protest peacefully. And he clearly didn't want women and children attacking military bases where they would just be slaughtered. Okay? So he has suggested that these unidentified arsonists that supposedly were hiding under his bed, but now have gone into the realm of myths, were in fact government agents, and they deliberately attacked civilian infrastructure like ambulances and the radio station and famous army buildings, very historical army buildings, precisely to turn public opinion against Imran Khan's political party, the PTI. So he's not accepting any responsibility for arson, and he's saying that he literally thinks it was government agents, in much the way that many people have suggested that government agents were agent provocateurs on the January the 6th disturbances at the US Capitol. There's a great amount of similarities. The lawfare, the concept of freedom, and the concept of agent provocateurs.
Yes, well
so
said.
We're now at a standoff with him inside his house. He seems to be able to communicate at the moment with the outside world. It is incredible how the Pakistan media essentially goes to bed literally between midnight and 6 a.m. So we'll have to wake up in a few hours' time, my time. I've been waking up at 3 in the morning in order to get ahead of what's been going on in Pakistan. But even then, that's 11, 12 o'clock their time. So I'm a bit behind. But, I have to grab a few hours sleep per day because, I'm now juggling time zones spread across the globe. But, I mean, it is to be noted, and I'll go to the last thing here before we go to our next broadcast, that there was a statement put out very long statement put out by the president of Pakistan, Dr. Alvi, the gentleman who recently met with the foreign minister of China. You'll recall that we discussed that. Now, his statement is looking at the historical context of civil strife in Pakistan, drawing specific examples from the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, bearing in mind that Pakistan had a full civil war that resulted in East and West Pakistan breaking up and the creation of the independent nation of Bangladesh. Okay? So in his statement, he has said, and this is the last couple of paragraphs. And I'm quoting here directly. The last and first thing Pakistani elders would say would be to cool down, learn from the past, and save the family. Our friends who have a clear view from outside are urging us to. Those nations that achieve greatness learn from history. Those who don't are forgettable dots in the sands of time. I have been urging all that we desperately need to find a solution. I am confident that, inshallah, which means God willing, better sense will prevail. And with the spirit of forgiveness, we will succeed in sorting out our disputes. A lot of work is to be done, and many golden chapters are to be written. Long live Pakistan. And frankly, I mean, that's a tearjerker, right? Because he's literally saying that this plea for calmness and reconciliation is because the nation is in desperate need to find a solution. I mean, it's just tragic. It's really, really tragic. We're talking about 225 million people, and they're on the verge of bankruptcy, and already hundreds of people have been killed and injured, and this is the state that they find themselves in.
It's a truly extraordinary and historic moment where Imran Khan, the former Prime Minister, and his party members are victims of an attack to take them out and wipe them out from any further elections. That is the idea that is being passed around. They want to close the party down, ban the party, lock them up for 10 years on treason and sedition type charges. It's truly horrific. It is truly historic. And what we are watching is also what is happening in the United States with Trump, and the Durham report is a similar parallel to what's going on. We're going to pause here, end the live broadcast.
But
and
very quickly, just before very quickly, I would just please, not as a boast, but just simply to impress upon the audience and just ask them to consider, have you heard that paragraph of the statement from the president of Pakistan read out to you on ABC News 9, printed in the Sydney Morning Herald, on CNN, on Al Jazeera, on the BBC Middle East service? Or are we the only people bringing you the detail and the tragedy of Pakistan?
Absolutely. Well said, Simon. It is so important to be able to get the details of the facts. We'll pause here and we'll be back in a few minutes' time with another story that's going to shock you, because it is through business and meetings and G7s and C5s and Arab Leagues that it appears that there is only one pathway out of this, and we'll draw the parallels that we are headed into a massive new world war. Don't go anywhere. We'll bring you that news in a few short minutes. Thanks for watching. We'll be back shortly.